Julien, there you are looking pensive in Paris in the evening. How is it? How's the evening? How are you doing?
Good morning, Max. I am all fired up. You told me, you promised me, this week there would be a battle. So here I am, ready to fight and ready to listen. So if you don't mind hopping on your couch here and telling me everything I need to know about this battle.
All right. Okay. So this is a battle. This is a battle, and it's not me because I don't think I could dig in my heels the way these people did. This is from Eric and Amy Wegener, and they bought a house, and the house had a pool, and the pool had a pool pump. I don't know if this happens in France, but in the US, it's pretty common when you buy a house that there's an insurance policy that covers, if an appliance breaks or something like that. So they had that. They have a pool, as I already mentioned. One other piece of background: in California, we do a lot of things for energy conservation, and one of them is you can no longer buy or install an old style pool pump. They have variable speed pool pumps, and they use 1/10 the amount of energy that the old ones do. So can't make people replace them, but when they break, you're not allowed to put in a regular one. So sure enough, 2 months after they bought the house, the pool pump died. So now they're going to the insurance company and saying, our pool pump is dead. We need a new pool pump. And they're like, oh, well, and they sent somebody out and looked at it and said, oh, we're going to fix this by replacing every piece of the interior of this and keeping it as a non-variable speed pump. And the wife in this family, it was like, it doesn't sound right. There is a law saying you cannot. The fact that you keep the frame doesn't mean you're not replacing it. And she looked a little bit, and sure enough, it was illegal to do that. And so she called the insurance company. She's like, you can't do that. And they're like, oh, yes, we can. And she's like, no, you can't. And they're like, well, all right, we'll get back to you. Classic stalling thing, right? So they're waiting for them to get back to them. And the repair guy shows up, unannounced, unwarned, with the guts to fix, to replace the pump that was there. And they're like, no, you're not going to do this. This is not okay. You're not allowed to do this. We must have a variable speed pump. And an important point I made that's probably pretty obvious at this point: a variable speed pump is $3,000-$4,000. The old kind are hundreds. So they sent the guy packing. They're like, no, you're not here. And the company came back and said, all right, well, we've offered to repair. We will give you $400 towards a variable speed pump if you want that. And that's our responsibility. We replace like for like. And, she just, see, this is where I would just be, oh, all right, I'll take it. But she was just like, no, this is not okay. You are legally bound to give. And, they have a pool maintenance guy, and they were talking to him, and he's like, oh, there is no way anyone can do this. This is blatantly illegal. This is not some little sneaky thing. This is enforced. People look at this. They're not allowed to do this in any way, shape, or form. So they had kind of backup from somebody in the industry saying this is not a valid practice. So they're back and forth. She was taking, screenshots of the applicable portions of the law where the right language had been highlighted and sending them to them. And they're coming back with ridiculous arguments as to, well, but that doesn't apply here because blah, 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 blah. And third round of back and forth, they won. And the company finally capitulated and said, okay, we're going to replace the pool pump. We're going to get you a variable speed. So now they have a shiny, nice new variable speed pump that by all rights and legally the company should have done in the first place. And
Wow.
it's a pretty short story, but there's a few things to unpack there.
So the first thing is, I can't say I'm very surprised. My brother many years ago worked for I don't know if that would exist. It would probably exist in the US. Let's say it's a kind of company that is supporting consumers to battle against companies.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, there's some things like that. I don't think any of them are very strong here. I could see France having a much more robust set of companies like that.
It's basically a way to get a cheap support. I mean, you could go with a lawyer that would do everything for you, but you don't necessarily afford. You're not necessarily able to afford a lawyer. So instead, you have this associations or clubs of sorts with a very small fee. They would guide you, and he worked for that for a while, and then he explained to me when I had problems with my insurance that it's actually typical process for an insurance. They would first reject whatever you send their way, then they would argue about it, and then eventually, if you are right, they would accept to make the payment, but they will make sure you have to fight for it so that the majority of the population would not fight and they would make money this way.
Mm-hmm.
And it does sound from your story that they probably know very well that they have to do it, but they're going to fight as long as they can, because most people, like you said, would give up and accept the cheaper illegal option instead of paying the full price. And with that, here is your margin, here is your profit. So as sad as it is, not sure it's surprising, but it's definitely not a great customer experience for anyone in that story.
Yeah. And imagine being the poor person at the insurance company whose job it is to fight these battles. Like, how do you feel good about yourself saying, well, yeah, I know this is what you're entitled to, but we're going to give you this instead. Or nothing. That's what you do all day. How slimy would you feel after a while?
Yeah, being a customer service representative is tough enough as a job.
Right.
Here's probably even hard. So it's hard on the end customer. We can come back to that, and it's very hard on the agent as well, which makes it both poor CX and EX. But hey, there is more profit to make, so I guess it's a good company experience. But
yeah.
What of the customer experience here? I mean, what can you do about it? If they had been rejecting it over and over again, what's next step? Are you going to hire a lawyer over a pool pump?
Right. I don't think there's any other recourse. And yeah, to your point, you're going to end up spending a whole lot more than it would cost you to just buy a variable speed pool pump yourself. We have similar mindset in general on insurance here. And this sort of home coverage insurance tends to be kind of the sleazier side of the insurance industry. Amy, who's the woman who fought this battle, she looked and this company and all their competitors had, D-F customer satisfaction ratings. So I almost feel bad. I mean, I would never buy insurance like that just because I know what I'd have to go through to get what I deserved. But in this case, it came with the house. You're not going to not do it. And once you have it, you should take advantage of it. It's what an awful. I mean, the model sucks. And I don't, it's not like there's a way to restructure the company or refocus them. This is something that comes along with the sale of a house in this case. And I guess maybe you could build a business around, there are companies that legitimately sell this to people directly. Um, but from everything I understand, the model is always, particularly in this niche, what you're talking about is deny, fight, eventually back down. Why? How does that exist? I mean, I guess it exists financially, and especially if it's just coming free with a house, it's not like I can shop for it. It's not like there's a competitive advantage to having good customers. Literally, they're disincented to have good customer service. Probably not, because they could extend it if somebody had a good experience.
Yeah, well, someone purchased the insurance in the first place, right? Even if it was not your friends here, someone purchased it in the first place. And that brings me to actually when I'm thinking about the customer journey, and that's purely my specific personal experience. I'm wondering how people purchase insurances because I typically look for two things. I look for coverage with this insane charts that never make any sense where you're trying to compare apples with bananas and trying to understand whether this specific item on your window is covered and the pool pump and the door is everything covered properly and how well covered and how much money you need to leave on the table and all of this. And the second item is how much is it going to cost me per year? I can't recall ever going to compare customer reviews for insurances specifically. I do it for everything else, but I don't think I've ever done that for insurances. And that's probably the most important element, everything considered, because that's what is telling you beyond how much you're going to pay. That's what's telling you whether they're going to support you or not when things go wrong. I'm surprised that I don't do that. I'm wondering if that kind of model still exists. Is it because most people don't do that?
Good question. I don't know. And you know what this is making me think about is in the US, insurance companies have whenever there's a Super Bowl, three of the best Super Bowl commercials are going to be from insurance companies. Geico has the Geico Gecko and all these just crazy, funny, silly ads, and then there's Progressive with Flow and all this. It just insurance is something where the default customer experience typically is not good. I mean, the buying experience, you can control that and you can make that pretty decent, but then it's down to the claims, and there's just, I guess by definition, there's an adversarial element to it. So, insurance companies in the US, and I'm assuming it's the same in press, they spend a lot of money on brand, and really try to overcome the fact that you're going to hate us once you actually need us. So, I'm the same. I haven't checked, and I probably should. And my wife had an insurance and a broker that she had a relationship with before we were married, and we just stuck with that. And that's what we've been using for 20 plus years. And it's been okay, but we really haven't needed that much.
So I guess the ultimate lesson here is more for customers than it is for companies. And it's be like Emmy. Fight every right? Fight every bit you can. Don't give up too early, because if you really believe you're right, then there is a chance you're actually right, and by fighting long enough, you're gonna get what you deserve.
I had a boss a long time ago, and she was a bulldog, and someone was so inspired by the way she behaved that they found a pair of pumps, high-heeled shoes, and the normal little thing that comes down was taken off, and there were trowels stuck in there, so that when she really needed to dig in her heels, they were the perfect shoes for it, because they had shovels to dig in with. That's what you need to do when you're working with insurance companies, is you need to get those shoes out.
And for employees, well, maybe you want to have a better understanding of what is really expected of you if you're going to support customers, whether you're actually going to support customers or not. because it might make your life a nightmare. Unless that's part of your DNA and you really enjoy it, most people may actually not have a great experience doing that.
I think you know some car repair people who would be good at that, Jeff.
I do. I definitely do. Well, thank you for that story, Max. That was an interesting one. Definitely new angle. And the good thing is, even though the story was bad, your friends ended up having a nice weekend in the pool, I guess. So there's that.
Yeah. It pays to dig in. Clearly, it pays to dig in your heels on this one.
I would agree. Thank you so much for the story. I guess next week is going to be for me to look in the mailbag what's in there, and I'll come up with something.
All right, sounds good. Good to see you. Take care.
Thank you, Max. Bye.